following on the heels of the ultra success of Hero Season 1, Hero Season 2 fell in hard times due to, in part to the writer's strike, and in part to a sort of lack of direction as to where to go from there. I mean, it was a great season. The first season. I mean, we were tuned in every time. We were always catching up over the internet and at work, on how great we thought it was. Second season, it just kind of fell flat for me. It wasn't hitting all the marks it was hitting before.
And I think that's due in part that season 1 was so good. You know, it was original and creative and engaging. Like, I couldn't wait every week to watch season 1, and I still watched every episode of season 2. You know, but just not with the same fervor that I watched season 1. And I think that was just because they kind of got a little carried away in what they wanted to do in season 2 and tried to put too much into a show that was already jam-packed with ideas and characters.
Absolutely. I mean, they had some good formula in there, and there was sort of like some missteps towards the end. I mean, it was like in the first season there was just such a huge build-up to this last final confrontation, and when that confrontation happened, it only happened in the last like 10 minutes of the episode, and there was only like maybe a couple punches thrown. There was really no battle. I mean, it was just build, and then okay, nothing. And what I saw in the second season was there was just like build. I mean, we're all worried about what Siler's doing with this new character, and he's leading her into New York, and it could be a totally cataclysmic disaster. Build, and then we get to the end and like, well, it could either be completely disastrous or nothing can happen. And sadly, nothing happened in somebody's apartment. It was just kind of
But maybe that's the beauty of Heroes, because it is really set in the reality of new people learning their powers, right? And it's not going to be Batman every time, you know? They're not going to have these epic battles that fly through the streets destroying half the city, because half the people just found out that they can fly or shoot fire or transport through time, so they don't have these wicked fighting skills yet. They will 5 years from now when they form their awesome Justice League or whatever they're going to call it. But right now, it's really based in the reality of like, what would you do if you found out that you had powers? The only problem with season 2 was that they tried to add more and more to it instead of developing the stories they've already had, which I thought were really interesting. Like, I was still wanting to know about Parkman, like, what's he gonna do? He's a guy with a good heart, just has a lot of powers he can't control, and you know, Heroes, always entertaining to watch. So those are the stories I wanted to see expanded. I didn't need new ones thrown at me.
Yeah, one character like that, Monica Dawson, which was a new character that added, she was the one that actually did work for me as far as new people being added. She was one of the characters who was from New Orleans, who had this thing called, what they called it muscle memory, but I mean I call it photographic reflexes. So she had this power to be able to see somebody do something and be able to repeat it. I mean, there's infinite possibilities there, and it actually had sort of shades of the Matrix, you know? She could just dip into her iPod and look at somebody doing some kind of backflip, and then she could do a backflip. I mean, it was really cool to watch that sort of thing happen, and also cool to see that she was one of the people who was headed directly into actual crime fighting. What I didn't like was that all sort of went sideways on her, and I'm worried that because things didn't quite pan out the way she was hoping, that maybe she might be discouraged from pursuing any more crime fighting, which I thought is perfect for her.
To me, the beauty of Heroes was always the people discovering their powers, you know, and that was what drew me to the show. And I don't think in season 2 they continued that enough. Like, all season 1 was people discovering what they can do, but then in season 2 they kind of just lost that and got more into the battling and the conflict and the backstories and all this other stuff that wasn't really necessary to drive it along.
You know, for me, like one of the characters that was really interesting in the first season, the horn-rimmed glasses man, or Noah, who is like this sort of mysterious secret agent who's stalking and doing tests on the superheroes. Now, he was a force to be reckoned with in the first season, but he's working for this company, this agency that must be way more powerful than he is if he's just one of their operatives. But as season 2 reveals itself, all I'm seeing is, you know, a bunch of dudes in the back of some gym, you know, like their headquarters was this kind of hodgepodge of rooms and windows and stuff. It wasn't a cool, like, high-tech HQ. I mean, their jail cells were nowhere near as cool as the jail cell in the paper plant where he worked in the first season.
Because you're expecting, like, what I would want anyways is that, you know, you get into that secret room and you go down the elevator shaft and the metal door is open and you're into this huge, vast room with all these people milling about with all this crazy technology that's not even heard of in society. They're like that far advanced because they're dealing with something that people have no idea exists. But you're right, it felt like 3 guys in a beaker and they're doing tests on DNA and they have regular looking jail cells where you can talk to the other prisoners next to you, which is not a good idea when people have ridiculously uncontrollable powers.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about some of the flaws that were in this show, but I mean, one of the things that remains constant, and it's good that it remains constant, is the production values. I mean, the production values are through the roof. Everything's shot amazingly. The effects are great. Like, I don't know if I would go all as far as saying they're seamless, but they all belong there, and they're yeah, like they're not subtle, but they are definitely appropriate. So yeah, like the audio is great. I mean, like the music is great. The sound design is great. I mean, that kind of production value is something that sets it apart from, like, say, other shows that came out around the same time.
Yeah, it looks more like a movie than a TV show sometimes. Like, you're right about that. Really well done, really well lit. Like, it looks better than a lot of Canadian movies that are made.
Well, yeah, and that's what you can get with a cast I mean, there's a large cast, but they're not all stars. So you can have them and they're very competent, but you can focus more on the background and what's building them up and what's the backdrop of what they're doing. The Heroes Season 2 edition comes with tons of features of all kinds. It's got an alternate ending for the whole season. It's got some of the untold stories that didn't make it into the season. It's got some deleted scenes, got some commentaries. It's got a little bit of everything for the heroes lover in you. No matter what my negative feelings are about how this season came out, it will definitely be making it into my collection. So I'm giving Heroes Season 2 a keeper.
Even though it didn't live up to the hype of Season 1, it is definitely worth checking out. Hero Season 2 is a renter.